following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
This is Radioheads, broadcasting live on DallasCowboys.com and the official Dallas Cowboys app. Now, your hosts, Tyler Klutz, Christy Scales, and Brad Sham.
Welcome to Radio. There we go. Welcome to Radioheads, everybody. The public executions have been postponed for 2 weeks. All deportation orders have been tabled, but only for 2 weeks. And then there's the opportunity for everyone to be idiots again. Tyler was just observing during the moments leading up to getting on the intrawebs here about how the public talk about the head coach has changed in a week, and I haven't paid much attention to it because I've been listening to inadvertently some media people talking about both print and broadcast about how, yes, that was great, that was nice, but that kind of offense won't get them anywhere if they're. I mean, people are picking things apart.
I heard the one that Kellen was allowed to call this game.
Yeah,
totally different than all the other ones.
Right.
Yeah, because Kellen took over, and now that was why it was what it was.
Right. And so it is as my therapist would say, it's your work to figure out why you can't let that go and let other people's business be theirs. But I would just say that I think we saw the most complete game the team has played last year. But I'll tell you when I really thought it started, and we got Christy involved in this before the game ever kicked off because you could kind of tell the atmosphere in the stadium was a little different,
It was
right?
charged, and the difference was like 90 minutes before kickoff, and it was during warm-ups, and the players go out super early just in shorts and T-shirt and do some jogging and stretching, but when they come out in uniform, they come out by position groups, or like the specialists will come out together. But like 90 minutes before kickoff, and the Eagles' position groups are trickling out, and they're getting booed. I mean, rained down upon by fans at AT&T Stadium. Now, it happens all the time to the Cowboys when the Cowboys go to road games, but boy, I just took note of it because I'm like, what's going on? Who did they show on the overhead screen? And no, it was the Eagles coming out, and so that just kind of set the tone. I know
the rivalry is real.
It is. Now the defense set the tone with the takeaways, but the offense also, the crowd also set the tone early.
What does that do for players, Tyler?
The energy. I mean, it's real, and you mentioned it on the radio. The radio cast of the game is they came out fast. It was an attitude. They were electric. It really does. So the atmosphere, although when you're on the sideline, you're not trying to notice what's going on, but it is an energy that you feel, and it's undeniable. And that's why you always talk about, like, you'll hear people, players, hey, fans, we need you here at this game. We need you, because the energy does play an effect to when you go out on the field and the intensity that you play with. We talked about the last 3 weeks. The fact that they came out flat, slow starts, and it was real, and we talked about that. Now, where we talked about Coach Garrett's role in that and going in and making sure they were prepared, we office here at the Star, so we get to watch Wednesday's practice. And
by we, Tyler means the multi-billion-dollar real estate conglomerate of which he is.
Not yet. ESRP. Yeah, there we go. That's us.
Key partner. Yeah.
Co-worker Darren Woodson. So there's some football guys up there. But even from behind the glass, not even hearing the stereo and all that, you could tell it was crisp and it was fast, and there was the intensity. Not that they don't practice hard, because I'll still, everyone asks me, like, oh, Coach Garrett's a quarterback and, he's soft and he doesn't work them hard. We practice harder than any NFL team in the league, guaranteed. The amount of physicality, the fact that we had pads in training camp for 30 days straight, not a day without pads, I mean, that doesn't happen in the NFL. He has them working hard. There's no question there. But there was something different. There was attention to detail and starting fast. And I saw them repeat, and we mentioned this last Monday. And we talked about how, okay, they need to focus on the first 3 plays of every period. Make sure that those plays are perfect. And what did we watch? They repeated, there was a deep over route that they ran 3 times in a row on Wednesday, and it was the first play because it wasn't right. It hit the same receiver every time, but it wasn't executed right, and they ran it 3 times in a row, over and over, and sure enough, they hit it in the game.
Yeah, I think I have a new definition for execution because that was one of the key words last week, right?
That's right.
Get off to a fast start. We need to execute. I think in the NFL, execution is not shooting yourself in the foot. Right? No, it is because the Eagles did that all last night with their turnovers and with key penalties. But I'd like to point to an offensive series in the third quarter where it actually resulted in a field goal and not a touchdown. But the Cowboys committed 3 penalties, offensive penalties. Tyron Smith, who is playing on a bulky ankle and is not near 100%. When he's getting multiple penalties in a game, that just lets you know that he is not physically 100%. He had a penalty. Connor Williams had a penalty for legal procedure, false start, and then Dalton Schultz had a holding penalty. But Michael Gallup had a couple of huge plays. That was the series in which Dak had the keeper and then went face-to-face with Malcolm Jenkins. That was the first play of the fourth quarter, actually. And then ultimately, the big play in that drive was the perfectly placed ball down the right sideline to Amari Cooper. What a great play that was.
Such a cool.
But you know, in the previous 3 weeks, I just don't see them overcoming that, right? They weren't able to overcome self-inflicted wounds, and yet the Cowboys were able to do that last night, whereas the Eagles were not.
I thought the tenor was set from the very first play. The first turnover was on the 4. I'm looking at the play-by-play, and they made a first down before they fumbled on second down. So they had run 4 plays, but you could tell from almost the first tackle that there was a lot of activity around the ball.
Yeah.
And if you're watching on the web, then you just saw Tavon Austin's touchdown.
Poor Orlando.
And then DeMarcus gets the sack strip fumble and sets up the Zeke touchdown. Now, before that, he had the run where it was it looked like he had scored, and they did the replay, and he was just short, and then took it in 1 yard, and then Blake Jarwin had the 1 yard TD catch. But Brad, just before the Malik Collins forcing the fumble on that in the first series, when you're talking about the tone set early, there was a very key play before that, and that was Chido Awuzie was flagged for pass interference, and then it got picked up.
Yeah.
And if not for that happening, then the Eagles were down, would have been threatening at that point. And so I thought that was really a key. There are certain plays or calls that happen in the game that are easily overlooked because they're such big highlight plays, but that was one of them, and it helped set up, who knows what would have happened, but ultimately the Cowboys got the takeaway following the officials picking up that flag.
And to your point, though, right, that from the beginning, we got the turnover early, big, but you mentioned it on the game. You and Babe talked about it, the swarming, right?
Flying around 6, 7, 8 people to the ball.
It is really, really hard on a 52.5-yard field to tackle someone by yourself. And the last few weeks, and you guys talked about this, there's a lot of missed tackles, but they were solo tackles when you're swarming, when you're coming together. But again, that comes back to energy, right? Everyone, multiple guys getting off of blocks, being where they need to be, executing and doing it. And that was the difference. And that's when good things happen. The ball comes out. The center snapping it early before Carson has a chance to catch it, hitting him off the chest. Those things are not accidents. It wasn't just people are like, oh, well, they just played terrible, like they weren't very clean. But you force them to play bad because they're thinking about other things.
And I quoted this last night. It's one of my favorite all-time quotes. Yogi Berra said 50% of this game is 90% mental. And so I had a defensive starter tell me last week, a guy that normally doesn't blow out of smoke, and I said, there's something's going on. What's going on? It's just not right. He said, it may be that guys are thinking too much because we're like afraid to make a mistake. And last year, if you missed a tackle, you knew there were 5 other guys right behind you. And so I always think it's a tremendous anomaly in sports. I was having this conversation with the Hall of Famer Jason Taylor, who was doing the national radio broadcast before the game, and they're just a couple booths down from us. We want our athletes to be smart and not think.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's being able to process all of the an immense amount of information, right? That these guys have to go out and execute to the point where you're so smart, you're intelligent, but you don't think about it because it is now become a habit, and you've ran through it all week. And it really takes someone like to have the intelligence to think about, okay, hey, I've got to put in this work on the front end so that when that ball is snapped, it is all reaction.
So the muscle memory of practicing the right way with the intensity that you described earlier, Tyler, that to me, if you've done that, and then you're really well prepared, which this team's usually pretty well prepared. I mean, I know people don't believe it, but they're pretty well coached.
Agreed.
And they last week, for whatever reason, might be 3 losses. Xavier Woods told us that on the postgame show. So did anybody say anything? He said 3 losses said something.
Yeah.
So, okay, if that's what it took, fine, because what happened was from the very beginning you could tell that there was an edge and intensity to the defense that, with the possible exception of the game in New Orleans, I don't think had been there for whatever reason earlier in the year. And now their job is to remember that that's how they have to play. But if they play that way, they can play with anybody. And when they did that, then they kind of set the tempo. Yeah. And so then the offense, when it came on the field after getting that first fumble, well, they had to execute to keep up.
That's right. You said a couple things. First, when he said the 3 losses said it, one of the things that Jerry, top down, has done a great job of is he's done a great job of building trust in guys. And I think had it been approached a different way after 3 losses, like the public was calling for, you talked about playing faster. You talked about not thinking so much. If Jerry had gone into that meeting room, or Coach Garrett had said it in a team meeting room, so whoever doesn't play, we're going to cut your A, or you better go play. You think those guys are going to think on the field, but there's a level of trust in this organization because I know Steven, Will, Jerry, Coach Garrett, they trust this team that they've put together. And yes, we had 3 weeks that we put stuff on film that we did not love, and the result was not there. But here's what I saw. I saw guys trusting the leaders, the organization, and their teammates, and they all played that way. And kudos to Jerry and the front office to allow that trust to be built, because that is what great teams do. Great teams trust each other, and they are not worried about, okay, who's behind me, who's trying to take my job. Look, that innately is in this business. It is. Someone's always trying to take your job. But the fact that Xavier Woods says, okay, the 3 losses said more than any coach ever could, that shows the maturity of a team and what the goal of this team is.
Yeah, I'd like to go to the point of, you were talking about practice and how, it's getting things right and getting the technique and the mechanics correct so that you just fall back on it like muscle memory on Sunday. Interesting conversation with Brett Maher last night after the game. Of course, Brett kicks the 63-yard field goal to close the first half. It's a team record, and he's the first kicker in NFL history to have 3 career field goals of 60-plus yards. But
so he's one of the ones who's not being killed.
He's one of the ones who's not being killed. But here's the thing: how he's great at long distance. Can we all say that he's actually more reliable from longer distances than shorter distances, which kind of drives fans crazy. But take a guess as to how many times in the week he actually practices those long kicks.
I'm going to say none.
They spend a lot of time on their own, especially when the team is inside. I'd say he probably kicks 20-plus 60-yard field goals a week.
Brad is correct. He kicks 0. So what he's kicking now,
what do they do out there then?
The longest that he
you've been around these teams for a long time. You got the long snapper, the kicker, and the punter. I think they go play pinochle or something.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what they do.
The longest that he actually kicks is in the pregame warm-ups on game day. The last kick that they'll do when it's just the specialists that are out on the field, they'll set the ball down at the 50, or the place will be at the 50, so that would be a 58-yard kick. But during the week, they don't kick long ones, and what they do is he's working on the mechanics because the stroke, the kick should be the same. The mechanics should be the same.
That's right.
And so that's what they're doing. It's kind of like LP Ladisar in a way, who's the deep snapper. Whether it's a 63-yarder or a 20-yarder, it's all the same. And I just thought that was really, really interesting. And the other thing, and it goes to where you talked about like mental toughness and confidence and things like that. Talking with Keith O'Quinn, who was the special teams coordinator, got some stuff with him.
And you did that
last
for
night.
A long time after the game. I saw you talking to Keith.
Well, I'm going to do a feature on Brett Maher, and KO. That's what we call Keith O'Quinn. Everybody calls him KO.
By the way, if you ever need any fitness advice, he's your guy.
Oh my gosh, he is more. Ed Hockley is actually jealous of KO, but he was just talking about how Brett is just so mentally tough. That from the time that he came in and he was challenging Dan Bailey, I know so many fans were shocked last year when Dan Bailey got cut at the end of camp and the team kept Brett Maher, but he earned that job. You know, he beat out Dan Bailey. But he says this kid, he's just, he's got ice in his veins, and it's just the same mental approach, and it's the consistency that is what KO really appreciates about Maher.
And so I've a lot of the kickers that I know, most of them are good golfers, right? And not just because they have the time, but because the mentality is the same, right? So whether you're hitting it from 90 yards out, or you're hitting it from 120 or 180, that swing should be the same, right? And it's the same. It's the same concept with kickers. Is that okay? Look, and that swing, his leg swing, looked smooth, looked easy. He didn't muscle it, and that's the sign of a good kicker. Because let the mechanics do the work, and that's what's going to be consistent. Because whether you're kicking it from 30, the ball's still going the same distance, right? There's just a net that stops it behind it, but it's the same thing, and that's a mature kicker that can, I'm not going to think about it being 60 yards, whether it's 30 or whether it's 63. I'm going to do the same thing.
We were just watching, if you're watching on DallasCowboys.com, we saw the celebration after he made the kick, and I said on the radio he will now be examined for a concussion for all of his teammates pounding him on the helmet.
No, well, concussion or drug test, one of the two this week.
Well, that could also happen. The other part of that whole thing that interested me was that now if you play outdoors, obviously you have conditions to deal with. But I said, at some point did you guys say, okay, I'm good from here, or did Jason say, how far have you got? And he said, no, we do that during the week. That never came up on the sideline.
He just made the call and just go.
He said, during the week, we know what the range will be. Now, I know that that's not the case on an outdoor field when the wind is, when they go to the Meadowlands in 2 weeks on a Monday night. It'll depend on how cold it is because the ball's heavier, and it'll depend on how the wind is blowing.
Especially there.
But for something like this, or if the conditions are calm, he said, no, we do that during the week. There was never. It was just kind of, let's go.
Yeah, actually, KO said that Brett was kind of like, give me a chance on this one. Give me a chance. And he pointed back to when I mentioned how he beat out Dan Bailey at the end of the 2018 preseason. It was it was the fourth game of that preseason, and you may remember that Maher came on and he had a chance to kick, I think it was like a 56-yarder or a 52-yarder. It was 55 plus, I remember. And he had kind of had the job maybe already in hand.
But nobody knew it.
Nobody knew it. But if he misses it, he really hurts his chances.
Yeah.
But KO said that he's like, okay, give me a chance on this one. Give me a chance on this one. Went out, nailed it, solidified his job.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to let Tyler Klutz dissect the Cowboys offense now and tell us why it either is now brilliant again.
Because Kellen's calling the plays now.
or why this offense can't possibly work going forward. This is Radioheads. We'll be right back.
While a player could look good on paper, it's when he's out on the field that you really find out what he's made of. That's why the Cowboys rely on more than just stats and scouting reports when building their team. When picking a tractor, it's why you should rely on more than just specs and features. You've got to take it out and put it to the test. The Cowboys did when they named John Deere their official tractor. Experience one for yourself. Visit myjohndeeredealer.com/football.
Do you want the most interesting, up-to-the-minute Dallas Cowboys news straight from the Star in Frisco? How about exclusive and on command? That's right, news and nuggets you can't find anywhere else. With our exclusive Cowboys content on Alexa, you can have all the answers, secrets, stories, and more. What's Stephen Jones thinking during a game? What's Joe Looney's favorite pregame meal? We take your questions to Cowboys players and coaches, and you can hear the answers directly back to you. Just say, Alexa, open Dallas Cowboys.
Want to use what the pros use? How about the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black? Right now, you can get the Jack Black Starter, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The starter includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites, plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word TEAMJB. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys. The Jack Black Starter, $10, free shipping.
The excitement of Dallas Cowboys football is back at AT&T Stadium.
The place is going crazy in Arlington, Texas.
Don't miss your chance to see the Cowboys live when they host their NFC East rivals, the Eagles, Giants, and Redskins, plus the Green Bay Packers and more.
Elliott works his way through and walks the dog.
Single game tickets are on sale now. Get them before they're gone.
First and goal, quarterback sneak. Prescott pushes up the middle. Touchdown.
Visit DallasCowboys.com to get your tickets today.
Back to Radioheads.
Welcome back, everybody. Cowboys are 4-3, which is better than 3-4. That sounded obvious, but it's not quite. Brad Sham, Christy Scales, Tyler Klutz, after the Cowboys blew out the Philadelphia Eagles last night, and so let's discuss the offense a little bit, Mr. Klutz, please, because it seemed efficient. People were dazzled by the kind of triple option call to Tavon Austin for the first touchdown. And where was that creativity the last 3 weeks? So would you address how situations present themselves in games? And I read one thing from a respected columnist, a guy who's a friend of mine who I think is really good at what he does, this morning, talking about that the bootleg touchdown pass to Blake Jarwin last night was proof that they should have done that on 4th down against the Jets. And it may not have even been the same look. To me, you can't compare one situation to another, but please enlighten us.
Yeah, you can't, because here's the thing is as you're doing your scouting, now, look, you've got 1 week to prepare. But the scouts and the quality control coaches, they're looking 2, 3, 4 weeks out. So they're already breaking down, looking at tendencies of the either opponent's defense or offense, what they look like. So when you create a game plan, you're looking at those opponents, what they show, where the weaknesses are. So, for example, last week, the Jets. There wasn't anything that showed them in the Jets defense that naked boot would have worked, right? Where the tight end slides down, acts like he's down blocking, spins out, comes back out in the flat. Like, if that opportunity doesn't present itself on film, you're not going to just drop a play to drop a play, right? You create your plays within your system that fit against that defense and what's going to be most effective. So to say that they should have ran that against the Jets, that's really hard, because the Jets may have shown a really good job of spying that backside tight end and making sure that, okay, hey, he's not going to slip out. Maybe someone's ran it against them in the past, and so it was like, okay, they do a good job covering that, so we're not going to use it.
Babe Laufenberg made what I thought was a really good point last night. The sequence at the end of the second quarter that presented Maher with the opportunity, and Christy made this point during the break, presented him the opportunity to kick the 63-yarder. First of all, you give an assist to Quinn for the sack that forces the Eagles to punt. Nobody remembers that.
Yeah.
But they've got to punt the ball because Quinn sacks the quarterback.
Yep.
Now, from 22 seconds to 9 seconds, Witten out of bounds, and they move the ball into what turns out to
Old
be
Faithful.
Yeah, into field goal range. So the reason I'm bringing all this up is it was clearly really, really good use of the clock.
Yeah, it was. Dak
and
did a
I
great
don't
job.
think that it is atypical of the way Jason Garrett calls a game.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen him, Christy. We've seen him practice that stuff in training camp.
They call it situational football.
Yeah,
time after time
Thursdays
after time.
and Saturdays.
So does he get a Thursday? So does he get a bad rap for clock management?
Coach Garrett?
Yeah.
Internally? Or just
the perception is that he is a poor clock manager, and I think the perception's wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I think the execution, why we have not been successful in the past. Last 3 weeks, we've had 2-minute drives multiple times at either the end of the half or the end of the game, and we just have not executed those drives the way that we need to. Whether it was a drop pass, bad throw, or a sack, which has ended a lot of our drives in these 2 minutes. But this last one, it was there, and Dak did a great job of taking what was given to him. And so they gave Witt space, and they let him, and then just get it to him, get out of bounds, just creep it down. Because really, I mean, an average play in the NFL is, they say 7 seconds. But in 2 minute, that needs to be down below 5. It needs to be really like 3 or 4 seconds. And those quick out routes, that's what that is. But
so they went from 22 to 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you say taking what they give him, and this is the growth of quarterbacks, is that last one.
Yeah.
He didn't try to force it because I think it was Mills who had Witten there playing on the sideline. Everybody else was dropped back deep in case they decided to go with a Hail Mary or long pass instead of a quick out. And Dak intentionally sailed it way over the Cowboys bench. So that shows the maturity there as well, and recognizing the situation.
An incomplete pass in that 2-minute drill, as long as obviously it's not fourth down, is a win. It is a good thing because that clock is just as or more important than the yards.
Absolutely.
But to your point, the clock management, Coach Garrett, we work that. The Cowboys, I say we, like I'm still there, but that clock management, we work that all the time. So to say that we're unprepared in that 2 minute and we don't have the right approach to it, that's completely false, because they work that all the time. And every scenario, every single Saturday, we practice a scenario that happened the week before somewhere in the NFL. So they're watching all these games in any situation where either a team did something really well or made a mistake, and we'll call it, we'll stop it. Hey, this game, this is a situation that happened. We're going to learn from their mistake, and we're going to replicate this, and we're going to go execute it the way that it should be executed. So he does a great job. I mean, as far as education on the game, like, he educated me so much, and having already played football for 25 years by the time I got to the Cowboys. I mean,
and you played offense and defense.
And the things that I learned about the game that I didn't even know were actual things in American football in the NFL, like, I learned from him, and he runs through so many detailed scenarios. So I think you're exactly right.
Give an example or two.
Like the end of the half kick that just happened actually this last week in London. Like, I'd never seen that before. The fact that you could fair catch a punt and then kick a field goal from the 50-yard line with a holder on it.
With a holder.
Free
kick, yeah.
And I never knew that the free kick, and this was a guy I'd played my entire life, literally since I was 4, and this was a scenario that we walked through. And not because it happened, it was like, hey, we need to make sure that we address this, and this is something that's at least on your radar, so you're not like I would have been in the middle of a game. Not that I'd be on the field,
but you might have been.
Yeah.
Let's before we talk about some things on defense, let's address a larger global point, which is I am constantly perplexed by what appears to me to be the feeling among football fans, and I think it's not limited to the Cowboys or to the NFL, that the standard is perfection all the time. All the time. I mean, do you have someone in your office upstairs examining every phone call and deal that you make and then explaining publicly why you should not have made that deal or how you should have done it, even though the closest they've ever gotten to real estate is driving by a sign in somebody's yard?
Yeah, I actually get that all the time. I get calls all the time that they were not happy with how I executed that transaction. And
you don't get them all the time.
My
you have
Twitter
your producer
feed
hang
blows
up on it.
Yeah.
Have your producer hang up.
What was Klutz thinking on that?
No, I think that it's interesting, though, with the fans and the reaction.
Yeah.
They think it's such a dumpster fire
Yeah.
with the Cowboys, but look around at the other teams and their fan bases have the same thing, unless you're New England. But
Yeah.
oh my gosh, the greatest joy besides the big win last night is knowing the reaction of the Philly fans today. Because they are apoplectic.
I looked at a little bit of the Philadelphia Inquirer this morning. I ran out of time, but the one charge, apparently Doug Peterson was accused in his press conference of his team being unprepared.
See, again,
What?
Again, they were just outplayed. They really
Yeah.
any given Sunday, they were just outplayed. I do believe we're the better team, no doubt in my mind. You know, they're a little banged up in the secondary and on the front, and obviously losing some key players, that doesn't help. But we are by far the better team. So to say that they were unprepared, I people just say stuff. There's got to be excuses. There's got to be a reason for everything. And your point, like, perfection is the only standard that we accept. And it's so funny, like, why is football that way? Is it because it's a shorter season and we've got all week to talk about it and build it up? And whereas baseball, like, if you're a 300, 350 hitter, I mean, you're an all-star.
Like, and you failed 65% of the time. That's
exactly right.
So you picked the wrong sport, Tyler. You should have done baseball.
Apparently, goodness. And my body would feel better, too.
You'd still be playing.
Yeah, we'll see. And to your point, though, I really do believe that it's unfortunate because the mindset in the locker room is to pursue perfection, right? And that is the standard. And that's why and I'm going to kind of go off on a tangent here. It's unfortunate because you look at these guys, and I'm included in this, but as guys go to what's next, it's hard because that's not real life. Real life is not perfection. Real life is failing over and over and over and learning. And yes, okay, we're going to make those incremental growth moments, right? And we're just going to grow and grow and grow. Where guys are just baffled, and it's like, guys lose back-to-back times in real life, and it's like, I don't even know what to do. And that's why we see some guys struggle in that next life, because this unrealistic expectation of perfection is not reality. But, on Sundays in the NFL, it is.
Well, so key also last night, I mean, not just getting the division win and being in sole possession of first place in the East, but when a bye is coming up. And imagine
it's the best week of the year.
But what's it like? Compare and contrast going into bye weeks off of big wins or off of very disappointing losses.
So the biggest key is practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week, right? Generally, Tuesday's a lighter day. They'll be in shorts and helmets, and it'll be kind of a light day. Wednesday's a work day. It's like, okay, hey, we're going to make sure we're getting better at something. And then Thursday's just another light day, send you off, have a long weekend. It's great. But you come off of a loss, those practices look very different. And it's generally special team coaches get a lot more time this week, right? So the guys that normally skip the special teams period now are in the special teams period. And instead of it being a 20-minute period, they now have 45 minutes to do what they want. And those special team coaches have a lot of time to come up with some really crazy drills. And so the week coming off of a win, it's the feeling is good. Hey, let's get better. Let's refine. And then let's enjoy this week. Let's unplug, recharge, and then we're back. But after a loss, gosh, they just wear you out because like, well, you're going to get rest this weekend. So we're going to.
Well, they wear you out because somebody wore them out.
Yeah, physically.
That is exactly
it flows downhill in football just like everywhere else.
Absolutely. We're going to take one more break, then we're going to talk about the defense and looking ahead. This is Radioheads. I'm Brad Sham with Tyler Klutz and Christy Scales. We'll be right back.
Your new apartment's big. Such a great deal.
It's okay.
Just okay? What's not to...
It's right above the subway!
Well, I bet you don't even notice it after the...
That's my neighbor, Angus!
A deal that's just okay is not okay. Get a great deal with America's Best Network. Come into an AT&T store and learn how to buy one smartphone and get a second one on us. Based on GWS 1 score, September 2018.
It's time for Tailgate with the OtterBox boys.
OtterBox? The makers of those crazy protective phone cases?
The one and only. They're also wild about protecting parking lot parties from sad drinks. It's why they made Elevation Tumblers.
Rumor around the crock pot is they're made from stainless steel with a copper lining to keep temps hot or cold.
True. They even come in 7 different sizes, up to 64 ounce, the Growler.
I like how OtterBox drinks. Thinks.
And that's been Tailgating with the OtterBox boys. Check out all the colors and sizes of their Elevation Tumblers at otterbox.com.
A man's Stetson doesn't just protect him from life's elements. It projects an unstoppable and legendary spirit, just like the men wearing silver and navy on the field every Sunday. Since 1865, Stetson hats are American-made with pride right here in Texas. They are still the official crown of all self-respecting Cowboys. And Stetson is proud to be on the field with America's team. Find Stetson hats in the Pro Shop or at Stetson.com today.
Star Sports Tours is the only official fan travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys, offering exclusive game weekend travel packages with sideline access and photo ops with current players, alumni, and cheerleaders. That's not all, though. You'll get to talk X's and O's with Senior Director of Player Personnel Will McClay, and of course with yours truly, me, Brian Broaddus. You can trust the official fan travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and with us, you'll travel like a pro. Visit cowboystravel.com to book your travel package today.
Back to Radioheads.
Welcome back with Tyler Klutz and Christy Scales. I'm Brad Sham. The Cowboys with a big win over the Philadelphia Eagles last night head into their bye, and I'm not really totally comfortable talking football unless I ask Christy for an injury report. And there were 3 of them that were pretty significant on the defensive side last night.
Well, Leighton Vander Esch said after the game that, he felt like he said he wanted to go back in. Now, he did come back out to the sideline in street clothes and watch most of the second half among his teammates on the sideline. But that injury to his neck happened at about the 4.5-minute mark in the second quarter. So I think the bye week will serve him particularly well. Yeah, yes.
Okay.
And I had a trainer say something that I can't. It was hard to pronounce and a lot of syllables. But basically,
how many stingers did you have in your playing days?
Too many. And honest. So
describe a stinger.
Imagine boiling a pot of water, a big one, big black cauldron of water, and then pouring it over half of your body. So my rookie year, I struggled literally the last 6 games. And so every time I would hit someone, I would get one. And it was to the point where, it was absolutely awful. And it's something that only rest can heal. It's
a nerve impingement, right?
Yeah.
So it's pinching a nerve, and so there's some sort of inflammation or something going on in your spinal cord, and every time you connect, and it runs down your neck, through your shoulder, and I was feeling them all the way down into my leg. But again, boiling water over the top of you.
And what we do, and fans, and we all say, well, he's got a stinger. He'll be back in a little while.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
But
they usually do come back. But he went into the blue medical tent, and actually, I think it's more than just like I say a regular stinger, and I don't mean to diminish anything like that. But generally, if it's a normal stinger, they'll come over and they don't even really go in the blue tent. Dr. Cooper, what they'll do, Brad, hold your hands up, like fists like this. You're a player. I'm Dr. Cooper. I press on your fists here, check like that to see if you have strength in your arms.
Yeah.
Somebody call HR, please.
So already, Brad's going to Me Too on me. So we're going it was different in that they took Leighton into the blue tent, and then from there he just went straight back to the locker room. So it was more serious than a regular stinger. I think that the one injury, Robert Quinn, it ended up with a rib injury. It happened very late in the second half.
Yeah.
And
the second quarter.
Second quarter, excuse me. It happened late in the second quarter. He did not come out for the second half at all. Yeah. And so rib injuries, and I don't know if you've ever had one one, Tyler, but our broadcast partner, Babe Laufenberg, say he had a rib cartilage injury and spent nights in the hospital, says it's the worst injury he ever had in terms of pain.
Every breath that you take, it feels like you're getting stabbed.
So I'm hopeful because Robert Quinn has made such a huge difference.
He's supposed to be on the radio show tonight that he was scheduled for, and then
as long as he's healthy enough to get through the radio show. Now Jeff Heath was not a concussion. That was he came over and. I think it might have been like torso, chest, rib kind of thing. They weren't like checking for stingers or anything. It was just like, and honestly,
he was throwing his body around all night long.
Actually, what happened was on this one, he's covering his man. He's crossing the field, and his eyes are back on the quarterback, and he doesn't see the receiver for the Eagles running straight into him. It was not a pick. Mm-hmm. It was just two bodies colliding at full speed, and it basically laid Jeff out. Now, I think it was a situation where if they really, really, really needed him, at that point it was 37-10, or at least it was 30-10 at that point. No, I'm sorry, they had already scored. It was 37-10, so this was with less than 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Maybe he would have gone back in, but they were kind of pulling some players at the end.
Yeah. So I want to mention a guy who never gets mentioned, but I thought he did a tremendous job last night. Kerry Hider is a guy from Texas Tech. He's from Austin, went to LBJ High School. And he's been with the Lions. He's been with the Jets. He's been with a few teams. They signed him in the offseason. I always kind of think of it, it was like a Patriots-like signing because nobody noticed. But he's a smart veteran who can play and tackle, and he's been versatile, but he's just nothing but hustle. Mm-hmm. I thought he had a really strong preseason, and Christy, last night I looked up to start the third quarter, and that's 51 instead of 58. That's when we knew that Quinn wasn't coming back, and I thought that Hider was a really important part of what they did in the second half.
He really was. Now, he made the highlight package because of the fumble recovery. That was the snap that Wentz mishandled there in the second half. But it was interesting, Brad, because Hider actually got quite a few snaps in the first half, but it was the inside. You talk about him being a versatile player. He was actually part of the rotation. He actually came in for Antoine Woods next to Malik Collins, so playing defensive tackle. And then in the second half, it was exclusively at end because Quinn was down, and so he's been a great find. I think technically he only had one quarterback hurry, 2 tackles, the fumble recovery, but for defensive linemen, the stats do not reveal or show what the true contribution was. I thought I agree with you, Brad. He was one of the unsung heroes.
But that interior line, right? That's what we talked about. We talked about the last couple of weeks that we really haven't seen a strong presence. Tyrone tried to battle through the hip. He just wasn't himself there. But Malik had an outstanding game as well.
He did. He had the forced fumble on the first series.
Yeah, he was one of the ones who was setting a tempo from the get-go. Right. And we saw the Malik Collins that we saw in training camp. And we've seen flashes. Yeah. And Antoine Woods was a presence, and they need that.
Yeah, that's right.
They absolutely have to have that. So and guys like Hider, I've always gravitated to those guys who don't Tyler Klutz, guys who make big contributions without a lot of headlines, no fanfare, no ego, happy to have a job. Give me 16 things to do. Yeah, and that's what you did, and I think that's what Kerry Hider does.
Olawale.
You saying I didn't have a fan base?
You definitely did.
I did not mention
Especially
a fan
the radio
base.
Crew. But guys like Olawale, he didn't have a lot of snaps last night.
There you go.
A guy like that didn't have a lot of snaps last night, but sure had some key blocks.
He had some big blocks.
He had some big blocks.
I love seeing that.
And what did you think? We saw a lot more of where Pollard and Zeke Elliott were in the backfield together.
Two-back combination. I do really, really like that because now as a defense, right, just think about the mentality. Okay, we got 2 guys that are capable of making big plays in the backfield. Whether you line them up in the backfield or not, how do you approach that? Okay, because generally either you've got a safety or a middle line or outside backer usually that's okay, hey, I'm on the running back. Now it's like, okay, so now I've got maybe a less athletic linebacker that's got to cover that. It's just a matchup nightmare for defenses when you do that. Whether you motion them out and run them, run a little stick route or just whatever it is. But now you've got to accomplish it. But then also, too, it's a telltale sign of what the defense is going to do from a coverage. So you really expose what the defense is going to do early on based off that personnel.
All right. Bye week coming up. Everybody take a deep breath. Put the hanging ropes back in the closet for a minute.
At least for 2 weeks.
Or save them for your your favorite college coach if that's what you need.
And then just remember, you could be a Dolphins fan.
Or Bengals. Oh. Hey, thank you, Kyle. You got it.
This has been Radioheads for Tyler Klutz and Christy Scales. I'm Brad Sham. Have a good week, everybody.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?